Hello and welcome to GameGuru live broadcast, and for the first time ever, welcome to Saturday. Yes, that's right, we've broken the mold. It's been Wednesday for literally ever, and this is the first broadcast where we've changed our schedule and it's now Saturday. And the reason we did that is we ran a poll on our YouTube channel and we asked, is Wednesday convenient? And 40% of you said yes. 61% said, what about Saturday? So that's pretty clear. That's 60% yes. So we moved it to Saturday. I'm sure there was like, oh, I'd like it Thursday at that particular time. But to get that right away, 61%, I think it was a good idea, at least for now, to move it to Saturday. So that's where you'll find us. Now, I'm also pretty sure a few people have dropped off, largely because they tuned in 3 days ago and nothing actually happened and actually didn't get the news that it was now Saturday. Fortunately, all of our broadcasts are recorded and put on YouTube, and you can find them there going all the way back, probably several years right now. In fact, in one way or another, we've run broadcasts or blogs or updates, more than just an article, for years and years and years. So you can really go back as far as you want. So I hope Saturday works for you. Let's see how it goes. If it's terrible, this was the terrible idea, maybe we go back to Wednesday, or maybe we run another poll and find out if there's an even better time. But 7 p.m. GMT, Saturday, the last Saturday of every month, is where we are right now. And for those joining us brand newly, the format of this broadcast is pretty relaxed and pretty casual. We start off with some showcases. Someone might send me an email that say, would you like to show this in your next broadcast? I'll say yes, and then I'll show that. Then there's any questions that you have and you don't want to wait for the live chat, just throw me those questions and say, ask that question in your broadcast. I'll prioritize those. Talk about getting your question in early, well, that's that particular segment. And then finally, we just open up the floor to general Q&A until we run out of time. It's a very simple formula, I think you'll agree. So let's kick it off with the first thing I'd like to show you. No, before we do that, no, I've been, you know what happens when you reformat literally everything you've got? You have to reinstall everything you've got, and I'm not entirely sure, A, all my software is running, and B, whether you can still hear me. So I'm going to find, I have it somewhere, here it is. A little chat window, you can't see it, but I can. I'm going to scroll to the bottom. Hello, hello, hello. Once upon a time, I'd always ask the question, can you hear me? Oh, thank you very much. Talent Gaming says, we can hear you. Anticipated the question I was going to ask. And also, remember we had some laggy performance-y issues in the last broadcast and a few broadcasts before that. And I said I would switch to a different internet, more of a faster latency. I've done that. So hopefully it should be a smoother broadcast. If you find that there is like a long delay or something, let me know. I need to do some sort of A/B testing to figure out what is the best technical solution to do a nice smooth broadcast. So great that you can hear me, and it means I can move on with the thing that I actually want to show you next, which is a little video that was sent to me by CJ. And without further ado, I'm just going to play it and let you enjoy it. So here we go. For those interested, everything you've just seen there was GameGuru Max. So I wanted to show that. It's really nice, very emotional. I'm happy with that. And that isn't something you can just make in 50 minutes. That's taken years and years fighting GameGuru Max in the early days before it was even version 1 to try and get it to play nicely in order to produce stuff like that. And I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, we'll see more of that level of quality. I mean, yes, you could look at it and say, oh, I can do a better model of that. Well, do that. Create that. It's all about production values. If you put your heart and soul into it, you spend time, learn the skills that you don't know right now, but you can acquire those skills, eventually you'll get something to that level of production value. And then it's a very short step then to putting it on Steam and becoming a real and proper games developer, making a living out of creating games. That's really the promise of this. You know, there are plenty of solutions out there that will allow you to learn programming and 3D modeling and drag and drop and all the rest of it. GameGuru Max takes it just a little bit further. It doesn't need you to code or script or to create models. You can actually pull it all together and get quite a long way along before you have to learn those skills. Hopefully during that phase you get some confidence in what you're doing, and then when you realize, well, actually I'm almost halfway to making a real game here, then you can start switching on those skills. Maybe try out a bit of Lua scripting, maybe open up Blender, create a couple of your own custom 3D models and textures, and away you go. And before you know it, you start to swap out all of the assets that we provide you out of the box as sort of a starter kit, and replace everything with your own art, with your own code, with your own music, with your own sounds. You get the idea. Welcome to games development at that point. So a really nice showcase. I do invite anyone else who's got something like that. The author was very kind and produced a video just for this broadcast. How do I know that? Because it was 2 minutes long. If it was 15 minutes, I couldn't show it, or I'd have to just stab through it all. But a nice, simple, clean 2 minutes telling you what you're looking at. Which, of course, if you don't already know, it was the Titanic. So it's a nice, factual-based game/simulator. I don't really need to sort of go into details. All you got to do is tap out Titanic Historia and you'll find lots of social threads on it. And the second thing I'd like to show you, it's hiding up here in the top. Only came in a couple of days ago, but surprised me. I thought, oh my god, I can't believe no one's already written one of these. It's from our friend Preben, and he's written, yes, you can see it, the GameGuru DBO Viewer. I'm sure there have been DBO viewers in the past. I think I've written a few myself. But this one is better than anything I wrote. Definitely better than anything I wrote. And it contains all the things that you kind of want, like, quickly. You don't want to... I mean, for example, the screenshot I'm showing you here right now, I just paused a video. It's a nice long video. Preben has a Patreon page, so you can go and check that out. And you can find this video on YouTube. But look, it's actually showing the names of the bones and where they are. I'd have to write some debug code. Each time I wanted to, oh, which bone number is that again? And I'd write some code just to find out which bone number. A DBO viewer, where you just select the model file and it literally puts on screen what the bone name is. Very nice. And as you can see, this was posted a day ago. So this is fresh, hot off the press. I've not even checked it out myself yet. This is just brand new news. So over the weekend I'm going to check this out, download it, have a play with it. I already know it's going to be useful. I'm going to have it on my system all the time. And it looks like, because I'm only seeing what you're seeing, is I can just double click a DBO file and it opens up the DBO viewer. And I can move around, I can see the model, I can hide and show meshes, I can look at bone information. Knowing Preben, I could do practically everything with that model once I open it. So that's something I'm showcasing, not just because I thought it was pretty cool, but I think it's going to be indispensable, especially for people who are creating their own custom 3D models. A DBO is a very underknown format. Not many people know about this format. It's proprietary to TGC, and no one really ever supported it. That's good and bad in certain ways. It protects your exports because no one can actually decrypt DBOs. It's not really decrypted, but they can't read DBOs. But the DBO Viewer is a nice step in that direction, and I invite you to initially check out the YouTube video, but maybe check out the Patreon page. I think that's where it exists if you wanted to download it and have your own DBO Viewer. So that's that. I also want to go on to the next bit. I'm not showing you any stuff inside the software yet. We'll leave that a little bit later when you ask your questions. One of the things I wanted to do with these latest round of broadcasts is if there's a question where I can demonstrate it rather than just talk about it, I'll have the software open, I can go in, create a project and show you the answer rather than talking about it. But I was asked if I could insert some pre-questions before we get to yours that happen live. And the question of the month. Maybe we should call this section the question of the month. The question of the month is, what makes GameGuru Max? What components, when put together, make GameGuru Max the product? That is to say, what technology fuels and runs and operates GameGuru Max? Well, as you can imagine, TGC have been around for quite a while. What would it be now? 24, 25 years? And we've been doing game makers all of that time. We've been writing game makers all the way back 25 years. So you can imagine we've got quite a lot of code. We've got quite a lot of code on how to make game makers. So a lot of the code is ours, it's proprietary, it's written from scratch. May not be the best code in the world, but it's been written from scratch. But along the way, we did pick up some other rather nice APIs and modules that added to our technology. Why? Because it was really good. It accelerated, it produced the results that we wanted. Yes, we could have done it ourselves, but it would have taken longer. And it's good to have people working on the thing that A, they enjoy, and B, they're really good at. And usually you get those two things together, and you end up with some really good results. And here are some of them. Top of the bill is the Wicked engine. For those who don't know, the Wicked engine is the graphics engine part of GameGuru Max. So everything you see, everything that's rendered, the 3D, all the stuff that's going on in that 3D world that you see, it's the Wicked engine that fuels that, operating under DirectX 11. It's an old version of the Wicked engine. I think we're up on nearly 2 years since we synced with the latest version. Wicked engine has gone from strength to strength since. It's even dropped DX11 now, and it's purely DX12 and Vulkan, I think it is. Is it Vulkan? Yes, I think it's Vulkan. And maybe one day we will actually get to that. But right now we are at probably the very latest version of the DX11 before it got dropped. And we're making the most of that code, and that's the graphics engine part that you see in GameGuru Max every time you boot it up. As I've already mentioned, there's a lot of old C++ code going back years, and even some of it is extracted from the really early, if anyone remembers FPS Creator, there's a little bit of code here and there, not a lot, but here and there. I mean, originally, GameGuru was supposed to be just an extension to FPS Creator. We called it Reloaded. But by the time we'd finished GameGuru, we'd rewritten half of it. By the time we'd done Max, we'd rewritten most of it. So there's not much left of FPS Creator C++ in here right now. And in fact, the first version of FPS Creator, just for a bit of trivia, wasn't even written in C++. It was written in Data Basic Professional. Then maybe you didn't know that one. Some other technologies, we've got the Bullet physics engine. That's been that's universally known in the game development sector. Everyone knows Bullet, and we use version 3 point something or other, and it's done us very well. It's not the latest, greatest state-of-the-art build that we have of the Bullet system, and since Bullet became prominent, new ways of doing physics have happened, such as GPU-based and CUDA-based physics generation, but we stick with Bullet because it can do multi-threading, and it does all the kind of things that you might want a physics engine to do. It's not the latest, greatest state-of-the-art, but in terms of a game that you're running around and you want physicsy things to happen, Bullet provides, and it has more features than you possibly need. And it certainly has more features than we currently expose. There's a lot more we could extract from Bullet if we wanted to. I could mention Og Vorbis. So every time you see a video playing, that video can be an OGG video file, and you can play that. OGG is, I prefer OGG over MP4, MP3, MP4. So OGG is in there somewhere. ASIMP sounds rude. Asset Importer is its full title, and that allows us to read in GLTFs, FBXs, OBJs, a variety of other formats supported by ASIMP, but those are the ones we shortlisted because they're the most common ones that we wanted to import. And then during the import process, we do a lot of voodoo magic, and then we export something called the DBO, which is the DBO Viewer that you just saw. Our own proprietary format where we can make our own binary files. So it loads in super quick and has all the data that we need for geometry and textures and animations and all the rest of it. And finally, maybe half-baked answers. So how's optimization going? Very well, actually. I'm really enjoying using the Optic system. It's a performance profiler where you include a header file and then just put a little event at the top of every function that you're interested in, and then you can run your game as normal in release mode, and then it will give you a chart of exactly how much time was spent in that particular function across the course of a single game frame. Very cool indeed. And it's already been used to find slowdowns and bottlenecks relating to raycasting and calculating Lua logic and logic in general. And I think the most recent one was a bug that was reported, because yes, anytime there's enough bugs, we stop performance work and we work on bugs. Sometimes we're fortunate and the bugs and the performance issue is one and the same and we can fix them. And one such issue was a person who was creating a very big level, 2,000 plus, I think 7,000 plus objects actually. You would click an object to highlight it, and then before that process was finished, it would have this really long delay where it seemed to not do anything, and then it would give you the cursor back and you can carry on doing something. Very frustrating for the person who's creating this very large level. Well, it was Optic that allowed me to add in some events and to drill down and find out every time you clicked an object, it would try and rebuild the collection list. And the collection list has a lot of clever and interesting things. It scans, obviously, some arrays, but it also accesses the file system. It tries to load images if it doesn't have a thumbnail. It does a lot of work, and that was being fired off every time you clicked an object. On small levels, or levels that have a project that has a good collection list, it was practically instantaneous. But on certain levels, trying to update the collection list each time, yeah, that would produce a lot of delay. And the system that this was initially reported on was 5 times slower for the CPU as on my machine. I have a slow GPU and a fast CPU. The system that this was found on, the opposite way around, a fast GPU and a slow CPU, which explained why you could click a button and literally wait there for 2 seconds before you get control back. Very frustrating. Anyway, it's history now. It's been fixed, and it was thanks to Optic to be able to drill down and find that. And yeah, there's more optimizations on the way. I've broke out the, I think I've mentioned it in the last broadcast, the laptop, which is sort of I would call a minimum spec. And another thing I've discovered as well is, for the longest time it was running at 30 FPS. And it's like there was no reason to. No functions were fired off to cause 30 FPS. But it would literally just take a very long time. It was almost like doing nothing for an entire frame, and then on the second and the fourth and the sixth and the eighth frame, then it would actually do something. Well, I think I've figured out what that is. It seems that you can actually set up your integrated graphics processor with its own internal options setting to switch VSync on. GameGuru Max has its own VSync system. So if the graphics settings in your operating system have VSync on and GameGuru Max has VSync on, guess what happens? It does 2 VSyncs. So it's basically waiting for 2 scan lines to complete before it starts the game logic and the game frame. So anything that would normally run at 60 FPS is going to run at 30 FPS because that's what it's been asked to do. 2 VSyncs in a row. So I'm not actually tested. This is theoretical, not tested in practice, but that was discovered in the last 30 days, and it's that eureka moment when you realise, of course, if you run two VSyncs, one that I do and one that the operating system does, of course it's going to be 30 FPS. It was a steady 30 FPS. It's a very stable 30 FPS, but there was no reason why the laptop couldn't run it at 60 FPS. So I think in the next week or two, we'll be able to run 60 FPS on most of the demos on my test laptop. So yeah, performance is going really well. I'm really pleased to make progress in that area, because that was a real brain bender, because there was absolutely no reason why it was running at 30 FPS. A lot of question marks here from J Birdmax. Wanted to remind you about character resizing. We can resize things like fish, but they don't work once done. Yeah, that was one of the answers to the questions that you asked in the first broadcast A, and I provided an answer that you probably never heard. We're going to focus on bug fixing, performance optimization and stability first. Then we're going to worry about fishes and features after that. I think it's the right way around, making sure that the game maker can produce a fast and reliable game. And then we start thinking about, you know, what kind of game would we need? Oh, we need a game with a massive fish in it. Then we can look at that. If it comes down to an out-and-out bug, then it can leap the queue. So look, this is a bug because it's actually broken. You describe something in your product and I did that and it didn't do it, that's a bug, and you can accelerate that. But if it's we never promised massive fish and it's a great idea, then we'll do it. It's just going to come after performance and stability work. And not just fish, of course, we're talking about anything that's running around using the nav mesh. Okay, another question mark. This is from Blood Moon Interactive. Will the physics in Max be expanded or improved? Like realistic weight friction, etc. Okay, yeah, you see, because we have an interruption, I don't know if I'm repeating myself or not. So, just for completeness, I'm going to repeat myself completely. We're using the Bullet physics engine. It's pretty powerful. It can be multi-threaded, has lots of very cool things. GameGuru Max does not use all of the features of the Bullet system. Probably uses about 50% of it. Uses enough to get away with a decent game, but there's a lot of extra little cool things in there. One of the things is very fine grain control of mass, weight, friction, materials that the physics objects are made out of and how they interact with each other. All very clever stuff. That's not really been given a lot of attention, so there probably are errors or some rounding that's been going on just to sort of get things working. If you find that there's something that's out and out broken, like I set friction to 1,000,000 and it still doesn't have any friction, it's a bug, and you can report it as a bug and we can look at it. If it's like, oh, I want a 4-jointed spring lever between two objects, that's a feature request. You can still post it, but you'll be waiting a little bit longer for it. So yeah, if you can identify a physics issue as a bug, you'll get it sooner. If it's an out-and-out feature request, you get it a little bit later. Is the ability to hide terrain coming? It is. It is. It's in my inbox. And my inbox is being defeated by me one email at a time. And I have my little design, I have my screenshot. It'll be in the view options and probably also somewhere else in order to hide your terrain. Because I'm putting it under the umbrella of performance. You get rid of the terrain, your FPS rockets up. So it's going to be a performance thing. But yes, there's a few kind of levels you might want to do where you don't need the terrain. So yeah, keep an eye out for that in the next 30 to 60 days. I'm looking forward to certainly seeing what the FPS could be without the tax of having to render all that terrain and everything that goes with the terrain. When is the first annual MaxCon? Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Every convention that TGC have done over the years, we never organised it. I think we organised one. And probably not even that. No, not even that one. Always been organised by community members. So I reckon if there is to be a MaxCon, it won't be TGC that organised it. It'll actually be member of the community who just happens to own a pub. They'll probably gravitate to that. So yeah, I think tradition may repeat itself there. Okay, question mark. Thank God for that. I thought I'd end up with like a gazillion questions that I'd have to re-answer. Fortunately, only 2 more questions, or even 1. This is from Rhythmic Carnage. Does the stand and speak stand and speak more behaviour work with MP3 files in retail edition of Macs? I mean, retail edition, you mean like the public version? There isn't any non-retail version, as I know. There's the experimental build and then the public release. I presume you mean the public release. MP3 files, not really tested MP3 files. I would say no. I don't like MP3. It has a license, draconian license attached to it, so I stay well away from MP3. Use WAV or use OGG. Both of those have been tested with Stand and Speak and work fine. And for many reasons, use OGG if you want compression, use WAV if you want the capability of changing and switching it out really quickly. Another question, or just conversation? Looks like conversation right now, but I'm going to read it anyway, under my breath. La 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 la, woohoo. Here's a question, I think, from That Crazy Viking. Can the LOD be improved, as it seems if 4 or 5 enemies aggro on me at the same time I get a huge FPS drop? Yeah, the 4 or 5 enemy aggro might not be LOD. It might be a big tax on the lure performance. We are making improvements to the speed of the lure calculations because they currently do quite a few raycasts, and it's the raycast that really can slow things down, especially when there's a lot of activity in a confined area. I think you should be alright with 4 or 5, but if you're on a low end system and the CPU's like demonstrating it's under a lot of load, there may be more optimization in that area. But going back to your point on LOD, level of detail, that's really about objects rendered in the distance. So if you've got 4 or 5 enemies aggroing, they're probably right near you, and so it wouldn't really engage any kind of LOD. Not that we have any kind of LOD. In fact, GameGuru Max right now doesn't have LOD. It has certain kinds of LOD, but the traditional LOD, where you get an object with 5 versions of it, with like the high poly one that's right near you, and then you can render the same object but with fewer polygons off in the distance, we don't have that right now. That capability, I think, exists in Wicked Engine, the version we're using right now, but it's not implemented in GameGuru Max. And it is a borderline performance improvement, so it could leapfrog regular feature requests, because by adding LOD, and adding it cleverly, and we have been researching technology that could accelerate the generation of LODs from traditional objects, that would improve performance. In fact, that's the reason we do LOD, to improve performance on very heavy levels with lots of moving objects. Okay, another question mark comes from Martin Oliver. When will we have instancing? Wicked Engine naturally does instancing if it can find a common mesh and then render that mesh in 2 different places and orientations. It has the cleverness to work that out, but we're not using instancing as much as we could. And it could be that what I've just said about the Wicked Engine automatically doing it is also broken. So it's really a case of being able to demonstrate that here are my 5 identical rocks in the scene, and instancing should be able to render them almost as if it was rendering 1 rock, but the 5 rocks demonstrates a noticeable drop on the GPU performance. It could be that for some reason the Wicked Engine's instancing capability is broken and you're not getting the benefit. If that's the case, if you can reproduce it in a way that you can put it in the issue on the issues board, that would be great, because then we can drill down, confirm instancing is broken, and then we can at least reinstate that much. But as to being able to specify your own instances versus parent clones, that's probably borderline feature request. But yeah, natural instancing for rendering the same object but in different locations and orientations, that should be in the engine. If it isn't, it's a bug and you can report it. Okay, question mark. I've scrolled down a little bit. Here we go from Cyrusoft. Prefabs going to be a thing. Prefabs are a thing. They're called smart objects. We renamed them. So you can actually go into, in fact, my first and one and only demonstration. Get to demonstrate something. Hopefully you can see the screen. Right, I'm going to go into here. I don't know what's in here. Hopefully it's nothing rude. There you go. I think it's just some testing I did with, yeah. Expect, if you've actually got one of the low poly DLCs, expect a few more characters to show up for free. If you've got the DLC, these guys will start showing up. But we thought we'd show off a few characters. Anyway, that's not what you wanted to know. You wanted to know about, what did you want to know about? I haven't rewrite it all. Yeah, prefabs. They're called groups. So you can see them down here, current object and groups. And from a group, you can make a prefab, what we call smart objects. So if I just pick any old thing, basement collection, let's call it ding, 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 ding. You could say all of this, if you group it all together, like so, you see, that's your prefab. So your prefab is all these things, you see. But then you've got this one here, save group, you can give it a name, and then it's a smart object, and then it'll show up in your library as this thing, and you can drag it in. So that's how we reimagined, refactored the idea of a prefab. We're now groups, so you can group things up when you're doing a level. If it's something you want to keep and use in multiple different levels, just save it as a smart object, and then you'll just find it in your library and you can drag it in, and you've got your prefabs. So that's how we present the idea of that. Last question. It probably is going to be the last question. Thanks, Martin. The tree system. Can that be opened to artists, as the system is useful not only for trees but plants, rocks and leaves? Yeah, it was always intended to eventually be opened up to artists. We can only do so much. We try and provide a lot out of the box, as you've seen. It's quite a lot of assets, but if you were working on like a AAA game, you're going to take 3 years to write that game. You're going to create all your own art. And there's a sort of a threshold, kind of a crossing point where you're finished with all the stock stuff. You now want to make your own stuff. And we wanted to make sure that you've got a nice model importer that lets you do that. But right now you can't import a tree. If I can do this quickly. I am running out of time. But we did have that massive delay, so hopefully everyone will forgive me. This is our terrain generator. I'll select a forest because you're guaranteed to get a tree. I don't really know. Okay, what it's called. There you go. See these lovely trees? You can't actually make your own trees. You just have to live with the trees that we give you. You go into terrain and trees. See, that's all the trees you've got. There's lots of different ones, you know, winter ones and desert ones and all the rest of it. But that is it. So the question is, can we actually add our own? Well, yes, that was always part of the plan. It is a feature request because we only ever intended to sort of start off with these, so you can create some kinds of forests and trees and foliage. If you want to get an idea of what it might eventually look like, then look at the particle system. So if I drop in a particle here, again, we just had like a library of preset particles that you could choose from, but look what we added. If you go to particles, add new particle, and then create new particles, that allowed you to actually add your own particles to the preset number of particles, and then it will be part of your library. And that's going to be the same one day with trees and with grasses. Now you mentioned rocks. That's not part of the biome system right now. All you've really got is the procedural terrain, the trees and the grass. There isn't a system to populate the world with rocks, although a lot of sort of competitor or rival or other ways of doing it do actually include rocks in the propagation, the procedural generation, because grass and rocks, kind of the same thing. I mean, you don't really want to place rocks down one by one. You just want the entire world to be populated with a certain density and type and style and size of rocks. But again, It's a feature request. It's going to be done after performance work and compatibility and all those good things. But as you can see, we're very close. The style is all we need to do is kind of add a button and all the capabilities of vetting the model, make sure it's the right size, it's got the right details, etc. So it's not a million miles away from being done, but we're just focusing all our energies and resources on making sure that it is a game maker, so a version 1 game maker that lets you make a game that doesn't embarrass yourself when you put it on Steam and it instantly crashes or runs really slow. So I'm afraid that is all the time we have. I apologise for the massive technical interruption of a brownout of, I don't know, 20 minutes. And for all you YouTubers out there who are watching this 6 months from now as we're broadcasting this live, I will have stitched the two halves together. So if you do see a little bit of a leap from broadcast A to broadcast B, you know what that was. And hopefully we can sort out our own technical problems for the next broadcast. The next broadcast will be in March, the last Saturday of March. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what that is, but just look at your calendar, find the last Saturday that falls on March, and that's when you can join us live. It will be 7 p.m. GMT. If you want to fire off some questions before the broadcast, feel free to do so at lee@thegamecreators.com, or you can post it in Discord, and I'm sure Tom Blood Moon will be able to pick it up and add it to his questions. That guy likes to ask questions. And also, if you've got some showcase stuff, some video, maybe 1 or 2 minutes long, showcasing a game that you're working on, you're quite proud of, and you want it to go live to the whole world, or at least to the GameGuru Max community, then please email that to me as well, and I'm happy to include that in a future broadcast. So I hope you enjoyed it despite the technical interruptions. I've enjoyed this. I'm very happy to answer all your questions. So if you have any more, you'll find me in and around the socials. So until next month, until 4 weeks' time, I shall say thank you for your attention, and I shall say goodbye.